and welcome to Unwarranted Music Opinions, the show in which three music nerds choose an album, force each other to listen to them over a set period of time, and then reconvene to discuss them, to get mad at each other, and to just rant about our love of music. It's been over a year since we last recorded, so this is basically Unwarranted Music Opinions Season 2. A great deal has changed. Hello, I am June Lindberg, and I'm here with Brian Courtney.
It's Season 3.
No, it's Season 2. It's Season 2.
Just say hello. That's all you have to do. I'm here with Brian Courtney.
Hey, what's up?
And Chaz Jenkins.
Hello, everybody. It's been a long time coming.
Oh, God. And so we've all chosen... Well, Chaz and I chose some fun ones to start us off. To try to get back into the groove of things. So we just haven't talked about music like this. We're no longer all in the same room.
To quote Brian Courtney in the very first episode, I just wanted to see if you guys were committed.
So it's a similar vibe. There's no theme. We all just chose albums that we wanted to talk about. And Chaz, I guess you're starting us off.
So the album I picked is by the project Chipmunks on 16 Speed. It is a side project by the artist Brian Borge. I know I'm botching that up big time. He is a indie musician, kind of underground. I don't know really anything about him. The only notable name of one of the bands he's been with is Holy Fuck. June, I know you're kind of familiar with that particular group. But his side project, Chipmunks on 16 Speed, is actually pretty interesting. It's one of the more interesting types of music when it comes to the genre plunderphonics, which I'm actually more familiar with than I thought, because that's very similar to how vaporwave works, especially in the more early days when you think of, Floral Shop, Macintosh Plus, which we've talked about before. But Chipmunks on 16 Speed is essentially, Brian took a bunch of Alvin and the Chipmunks vinyls that he found, 45 vinyls, put them on a vinyl record player, and slowed them down to 16 RPM, which is rates per minute. So it's very, very slow. Not a lot of record players can do that, actually. So it was very interesting that he had one and that he got the idea to do this. And what we have is a bunch of Alvin and the Chipmunks cover songs slowed down to, it's so weird. We get this weird grungy, groggy rock and 80s pop that sounds kind of post-punky and just so out of this world. It's nothing I've ever heard before. So what'd you guys think?
I think the notable thing about this, what makes it so ridiculous, is that obviously it's Alvin and the Chipmunks. So if you think about how they make Alvin and the Chipmunks, they have the instrumentation that's all normal, but then they speed up the vocal, or they do something to higher pitch the vocals. So if you slow it down, that's going to make all of the instrumentation that was normal before become this sludgy, grungy craziness. And it's going to make the vocals, which used to be Alvin and the Chipmunks, they kind of on this just sound like a post-punk vocalist.
Yeah, some of the tracks
they literally just kind of sound normal. Sometimes you can tell that they've been slowed down. Sometimes it's a little weird, but especially on the first track, Call Me, it just sounds like a baritone, maybe early 80s gothic rock vocalist going on over this. I'm not sure how long the original is, but I don't think there's any song on here that's shorter than 6 minutes, because obviously they're all slowed down, so they're just going to be longer.
No, actually, the longest song is 8 minutes, and that's My Sharona, I think. Or no, I think that's Walk Like an Egyptian. That's 8 minutes.
No, I'm seeing You Keep Me Hanging On at over 8 minutes.
Okay.
So overall, it's a surreal, weird experience. You put it on for the first time, and honestly, if Call Me doesn't make you go, whoa, what the hell has happened here?
It makes my blood thick.
I'd be very surprised.
You're being awfully quiet over there, Brian. What'd you think?
What was the last song on the record for you?
Refugee.
Always on My Mind. Always on My Mind is the one that I had.
No, it should be Refugee.
It's Refugee. I told you it was. So she missed the worst track.
Okay, interesting.
I just wanted to get that out of the way because I knew she was wrong.
So, Brian, I know you don't like this particularly, but I'm actually very curious why. Because there are elements here that you've liked in previous music we've listened to. So I'm curious about what this music brings to the table that you don't like. He's stewing.
He has been stewing all week.
Just trying to think about where to begin.
Well, let's take it track by track. So it opens up with "Call Me."
Call Me, whatever. That one's good. Far and away, like the most enjoyable part.
It is absolutely.
Because just slowed down, it just happens. It's total luck, but it just happens to sound pretty interesting, pretty cool. I think the song lends itself to being played that way a little bit too.
Yeah, a lot of these are 80s pop rock cuts, and some of them sound better slowed down than others.
Yeah.
Some of them that are a little more rock oriented to begin with, I think sound better with the guitar, like the guitar sound on Walk Like an Egyptian.
Love
like
the sound of the guitar on this album. It's nothing like I've ever heard before. Like there are musicians out there. There are musicians out there who use like thousands of pedals to get that sound, and here all you have to do is just slow down the track, and you get it instantly.
I mean, sometimes it sounds interesting. Like on the Call in particular, there's like it's like now a super heavy riff because it's been slowed down. When normally it's just it's just like some chord or something. But now it sounds like a fucking dirty, sludgy riff. And the vocals on that track, like the vocal performance is the best part, because it just sounds so interesting. It succeeds at like, it doesn't, no, it was never meant to do this, but like, I think the appeal of the album is that it completely changes the vibe and the atmosphere. And on that song, it actually is. It's actually like, damn, this is disgusting. It sounds like a Ghost track in some respects.
I kind of see that.
And like
I get a lot of gothic rock vibes from it.
Right. Basically, it's more goth rock than Ghost, but like the way the vocals sound.
Yeah, you're totally right. Completely recontextualizes. Well, I don't know what it's recontextualizing because on one hand, it's recontextualizing Alvin and the Chipmunks, but it's kind of also recontextualizing the original song that the Chipmunks are covering.
Right. All it does is turn this from Alvin and the Chipmunk covers to like strange, like local band covers, basically.
I don't know. Some of these sound so much different than the original. To the point where it's like its own song. Like these are original tunes.
The strength, I think they all sound like covers, but the strength of it is in that they sound like, a unique take on the song. But none of them are good past Call Me.
You don't like Walk Like an Egyptian? That's the best song on the album.
It's like my least. That's one of my least favorite. It's terrible.
So why?
It's funny. First of all, I just don't like the song.
Fuck you. The Bangles are great.
You don't like the original? That's a hot take right there. I did not expect that.
No, Bangles are great.
I don't like this cover either at all. Like this is pretty much how the rest of the album.
Egyptian.
This is pretty much how the rest of the album goes. Is like that's kind of interesting that sounds that way, and then you have to listen to the rest of it. Like outside of a couple of moments, like here and there after the Call, where the guitars sound interesting, or it's like, damn, this is like there are a few moments that are like, wow, that's kind of crazy that it sounds this way slowed down, but that's literally that's all the value of this album.
I think there's more than that. It's not, I think it's more than a novelty. I truly believe that this is more than just a gimmick. There's some real substance here, I think.
I'm glad people like it. I am inclined to agree with you. I just don't like it. I'm sure people get stuff out of it. It is kind of strangely unique, but at the end of the day, I can't think any more of this than, okay, slowing this Alvin and the Chipmunks vinyl down led to this kind of hilarious discovery, but it's not, I don't think the results are, I know people like these songs, like, and are genuinely into this record. I don't see it.
So then we get
not for me.
Heaven is a Place on Earth and Diamond Dolls, which personally I think is the weakest part of the album. I think I could have done without these two tracks personally.
The thing
they're okay.
The way that I feel about this, and this kind of gets into it, like I said, the more pop rock songs, when they're slowed down, they have that sludgy post-punk vibe. But then a lot of the rest of it ends up kind of sounding like a drunk Peter Gabriel. A little bit, going over like 8-minute long cuts that are a little more on the synth pop side of things, but very, very slow and to the point where it's an 8-minute long cut. Like, obviously it couldn't be any shorter because that's just the way this album was made. It physically could not have been shorter.
Right, yeah.
But it doesn't hold your attention for the entirety of the length. It doesn't remain interesting the way that
this
like, Call
album,
Me or Walk Like an Egyptian.
I like this album a lot, actually, but I have a serious issue with it. I think it slogs like no other album we've ever listened to. It's the
sloggiest album that we've ever talked about, and not because.
But that's obviously the point.
It just sounds like sludge.
I've never had an album test my patience than this one. I think that's the whole point. However,
I'm gonna bring you out, you piece of shit. You all are funny.
Here's the thing.
You all like this.
Well, here's the thing. I don't love it. If I were to clean this album up and make it a better album experience, because the track listing here...
You would cut Refugee. You would please don't just... Refugee, get it out.
No. I'd cut Heaven is a Place on Earth and Diamond Dolls and replace those with Always on My Mind and Refugee. So you have 6 tracks instead of 8. Because I think Always on My Mind and Refugee are good. They just seem worse because they're at the tail end of the album. The album needs to end with My Sharona. That's such a perfect closer. I don't know why he didn't end with that. That lasting riff that ends, that ba-na-na, ba-na-na, I could hear that forever. It's so gorgeous. And then it goes right back into the classic riff. That should have ended the album.
It's really weird how it is. I guess if there's one thing I'm impressed with, it's how consistently like goth this thing sounds. Like just how like way over the top like it ended up sounding. Diamond Dolls, Heaven is a Place on Earth, whatever. I mean, bad songs, right? Like not like the song, but you know these versions of the songs are obviously bad.
Because
and
the album
Keep Me Hanging On is like it's honestly like a straight up vaporwave track.
Well, the best moments on this album is when it really changes the emotions of the original tunes. Like when you hear a song like Always on My Mind.
Exactly. Because the call is the best song for that reason. Like it's like a complete. It sounds like satanic.
But I think Always on My Mind has that same effect, but it's lessened because it's at the tail end of the album, and you're already kind of getting bored of it. You're kind of getting tired of it by then. Like I said, this really should have been a 6-track album that ended with My Sharona, and it would have been a lot better, I think, as an album experience. Because as it stands.
Yeah, I think the way it stands right now, it's more of just like a statement of, hey, look what I found.
Rather than, hey, look at this project I made. Yeah. Rather
than like a project that's actually been tailored to be.
But it could have been that.
Should he have messed with it any more than he did? I think there's something interesting about how just simple the process of making it is.
It seems like
did he even make it? Like he just recorded a slowed down record. Like that's all that he did, and it turned.
But isn't that the whole point of Plunderphonics? Isn't the whole point of
a lot of Plunderphonics is considerably more complex and has a lot more samples, and is like they'll be drawing samples from hundreds of different sources and putting it all together to make something that sounds completely different. This is literally just a slowed down record, and that opens up the whole conversation of is it even? What even is it? Can you consider it to be an album on its own?
I think so, because he has other...
But I think it can just because of the way that people interact with it. It's not because of the way it was made. It's because of the way that it's what people get out of it more than what was put into it, I think.
Right.
That makes this thing kind of just like an interesting... Yes, a novelty, but also one of the more interesting novelties that you're going to hear, I think.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not familiar with Brian's work. I don't know how he is as a musician, a producer. I've heard of some of the groups he's been with, so I really don't know him well enough to, what I'm about to say, if it makes any sense. But if I were him, I feel like he had the choice to make this a better album listening experience, because the flow of this album is pretty bad. It just, you can see that there's an idea here, an emotional kind of tie between some of these songs because of how much they recontextualize the original meaning. So I feel like if he was going to ride that, I feel like some of these tracks just didn't need to be here, and some should have been switched around. I feel like if he had done that, he not only would have had a really cool, like, hey, look what I found, but also a really cool album that people could take seriously and be like, hey, this is actually pretty interesting. But I don't know why he did what he did. I'm sure maybe it does make more sense to just, hey, look at this. Here it's all in its glory. uncensored, raw. Here it is. But if I were him, I would have really cut this down.
I guess if you're looking at it from that perspective, you would just take a crop of songs from these records and just see which ones sound the most interesting. You basically, I don't know what his thought process was in making it. I mean, as it stands, not worth it. Not fun, not pleasant. I would never listen to it more than once or at all if it weren't for the show.
Can you go into more detail why? Because you haven't really said a lot about why you don't like it. What specifically about this album gets like under your skin?
In general, so if I were to pick out some of the things I like, in general, like, and it's weird to talk about because it's a slowed down record. So it's not like, it's not like it was, this was not intentional the way this sounds. So in general, the vocals are not that grating. They're okay and sometimes good. The instrumentals are, sometimes this slowing down of the record just causes the instrumentals to sound like complete fucking trash and not interesting at all. Sometimes you do get like cool little, I mean, it's basically just cool moments sprinkled throughout an otherwise agonizing experience. Cause you'll hear like there's this cool, like little, thick bass line. That's like chunging along somewhere around the middle point of the album. I don't remember exactly which song. And that's cool. Like that part sounds good. Or like sometimes you're like, it's hilarious that guitar ended up sounding that way, but it's not impressive and it's not great. It's just, it's okay. That's a cool riff. But a cool riff, a good album does not make. So, usually what you're enduring is actually what you're getting is a slowed down version of a track that sounds kind of weird because it's a slowed down album of the Chipmunks record. Slowing it down doesn't add any value to the tracks a lot of the time. I get the idea here. I think the first song is, I think if you heard the first song of this, you would be so impressed and blown away as a first impression that you could hear the rest and think, oh, I can make something out of this. But I think it just happens to work with the first song because everything else here is really terrible and only gets worse as you get to the latter half. And it's not even the fact that you're having to listen to it in a gauntlet in a row. The last half is insufferable. You Keep Me Hanging On is like literally just a straight up vaporwave track, take it or leave it. The only good thing about it is that the hook sounds interesting. My Sharona, terrible, ruined this fucking song for me. Absolutely horrid cover. The way it sounds slowed down.
Wow.
Completely grating, literally nothing to take away of substance from the track. Just because it sounds interesting doesn't mean it sounds good. Always on My Mind, just completely boring. Like nothing, like literally nothing about this track sticks with me. Just completely unimpressive, waste of time, and it's long. Like the problem is it's long. So once it sucks for 7 minutes. Refugee has the most grating, horrible vocal performance on this whole thing.
Theodore, what do those words mean?
It's absolutely terrible. The when he like screams out like "live like a refugee," it's the worst thing I've heard recording for this show. Like as far as like recording for Here Go, easily the worst thing I've ever heard. Yeah, this is terrible.
It's good to be back, guys. It's really good to be back.
First track, pretty good. Like kind of like, okay, I could see the appeal, but there's not 56 minutes of appeal here. Let me ask you this. Did you listen to it sped up?
No.
Get that idea, or is that just me?
Well,
if you listen to it at 2 times speed, it's still fucking terrible. I tried though. I thought it'd be worth it.
Well, here's the thing. I kind of was curious if
What?
I kind of talked to June about if I should listen to the original Alvin and the Chipmunks versions of this for context. But
I was thinking about that though. I was like, maybe if I go listen to those, this will be. I'll get some newfound knowledge.
But I didn't. I didn't need to.
Me either. 2 times speed was a fun little experiment. It almost saves the Sharona cover, but it doesn't. It's fucking bad.
Well, what do you give it, Brian? What do you give it?
It's straight shit.
What's your rating?
He puzzled and puzzled and puzzled some more.
Light one. Like, I don't know. What do you want me to say? It's awful.
Woo! I did
it! Worse than Seether, apparently. I'm going to give this a 6. I'm going to give this like a light 6. It was enjoyable. It was interesting. I had a decent time with it.
I'm going to give it a light 7 because I personally think it has some really high highs.
That first song is pretty badass. Like,
well, because
like,
for me,
like literally, just listen to that song. That would be my.
Because for me, I get those moments with My Sharona. I get those moments with Walk Like an Egyptian. I get those moments with You Keep Me Hanging On. Personally, so I think it has some really high highs. However, it has some major flaws. The track listing, the flow of this album is really wonky. It's too damn long. It's a slog, a major slog, which I think was the point. The album is called Sludgefest. What do you expect? So I think a light 7 is perfect because while it has those issues, this is such a creative and genius idea. I'd never in a million years would think that this is something that would happen. And the fact that it did, I think it's really cool. So yeah, I think a light 7.
My pick is People Who Can Eat People Are the Luckiest People in the World by Andrew Jackson Jihad, folk punk band from the late 2000s. Similar, in the same vein as Against Me, in terms of just generally how they sound. But they're pretty distinct from that. This is their first record, their most praised record, and of all the records I've heard, their best record. It's acoustic. As far as I know, not really any electric instrumentation on here. I think there are like some keys at some point, but no, it's like a xylophone or something. So,
it's an accordion.
Is there an accordion?
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. So I mean, but for the most part, it's pretty bare bones. I don't know if I have a whole lot more to say about it. I guess the attitude of the record is probably the most important part. It's sarcastic, like very well spoken, but kind of speaking out of both sides of its mouth on its topic, which it tends to be just human beings. I would just rather hear you all talk about it than me try to explain what it, I can explain what it is, but how you all feel about it's going to be totally different.
Well, on first listen, I didn't think this was really going to be my thing. It's got that sort of emo vocal style that I'm usually not too much of a fan of, honestly. Although it does go by in only 25 minutes. And some of the lyrics definitely stuck out to me on first listen. This album does have a lot of personality. So I went back and I've listened to it 5 times at this point. And now, honestly, I think this album is great. Any hang-ups that I had at the beginning are basically gone because this is just a very, very consistent, upbeat, energetic set of songs with a really, really likable frontman with pretty fantastically expressive vocals and lyrics. I mean, you can't really listen to this album even once and not have a few moments that are going to remain with you lyrically. There's a lot of times where you stop and go, whoa, what was that? Did you just say I have a Nazi inside me? There's a lot of moments like that tend to be, I want to say they tend to be very 2000s millennial angst. Sort of, this is a very, very 2000s album, I think. Very, very millennial album as well. I found that Jean-Claude Bonnet, the frontman of the band, he was 22 when this album came out. Probably younger than that when he wrote most of these songs. And it definitely has that feeling that it was from a perspective of a young person who is trying to understand just the overall shittiness of the world and of some people, but at the same time, this isn't necessarily a super pessimistic album. It's sarcastic. There's definitely moments where, he's basically saying, what the hell is wrong with people? But it does end with there's a lot of love here as well, for friends, for people that he likes, for the good that they do. And that's ultimately what made it so that I could really enjoy this album. Because if it was entirely negative, I just don't think that I'd be able to get into it. But because he shouts things like, be the best fucking human that you can be, like that bit, like it gets you, like that bit is it just makes you feel good. It makes you can't disagree with anything he says. Really, on this album, basically at all.
You can't. Infallible. Yo.
It's real. I mean, seriously, it's an extremely relatable record, and yes, it does have the young, angsty feel to it, and especially in the vocal performance.
But that's totally counteracted by the self-awareness and the humor.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. That it's so genuine, or right? It's exactly.
It's never annoying because it's authentic. It feels authentic. It's not whiny. It's self-aware. It's a very, a good mix of like understanding and feeling is really what it is, because he absolutely knows what he's trying to say, and he has very clever and funny ways to say it, which is what you have to do to translate these ideas, and they just translate perfectly. Relatable, funny, the best qualities about it beyond just having great songs is the likability of Sean Bonnet and just his lyrics. There are tons of hilarious moments all over here that totally ground the album,
So I'm a little similar on June's case for the first couple listens. I was really worried on my first listen that we were going to have a Father John Misty scenario here, maybe at a lesser case a Benji situation, where it's just depression, cynicism, like the entire time just pounding in the back of your head with all these lyrical moments that are happening. However, it's saved by that closer. And then I was like, okay, I see what we're doing here. We're showing all this, what humanity is doing. We're showing how people are. There's a lot of lines about how the lead singer thinks of people in general and human beings and how they act and why they do what they do. And it just comes off as very sad and cynical and depressing. However, it ends on such a high note of not even bittersweet, just hope. Like, hey, the world is shitty right now, but there is hope. And that's what I love about this album. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and when it does, it's poignant, it's guttural, it does not hold back in the slightest, but it still has that brevity that lifts the weight off your shoulders and says, hey, I know things are tough right now, but it's going to be all right. And I love that. That's a similar thing that I love so much about Diamonds in the Rough by John Prine. If you have an album that really takes on a lot of serious and dark issues, and you don't have that brevity, it's going to be a tough listen. And like that's what I said. It's like a Father John Misty scenario where pure comedy, yeah, the lyrics are fantastic, but there's never a break from it. It's just nonstop. But here we don't get that. I thought we were, but then the last track plays and any expectations that I had were taken away. And I've got to praise this album lyrically. For this show, the two albums that I can think are probably the best lyrically are Slint and Benji. Spiderland and Benji. This album stands toe-to-toe with those, but a very different way. Slint is all about detailed stories that create atmosphere, while Benji is all about detail. Here, it's all about layers. There's so many ways you could pick apart these lyrics and find a new meaning or a new twist on something. Just reading through the genius lyrics of like what he was saying and what he meant by it, I was blown away by how much there was to peel apart with each of these songs. Not a single track misses a beat with how poignant and guttural the lyrics are. But the humor...
It's super memorable, too.
It really is. And the instrumentation, the banjos, the mandolin, the use of accordion is masterful, and it's super catchy. And, June, you were mentioning the vocals. The vocals I never really had a problem with. I think I'm just used to that emo punk sound. Like a band that comes to mind when I think of this is like Modern Baseball, and they came after Andrew Jackson. But that delivery is very common in emo punk. So either love it or you hate it.
I've ever been able to connect to. This is maybe one of the very few times, if not the only time, where I've been able to connect with an album with this kind of vocal performance.
I gotta praise the production. It makes me feel like I'm in a coffee house, and there's only like a few audience members, and we're watching them perform because of how loose it is. I love how loose it is. They have like studio.
God, the way he plays his guitar is so like.
Oh my God! It reminds me of like
it's like rustic. I don't know. Like I may be using that word, but it's so.
It sounds like the strings are gonna snap at any moment. I love it.
He's not like plucking super hard, and it's like he's strumming. It's calculated, but just the amount of energy that he plays with and the way it comes out sounding.
So I have two issues with it. Well, one of them is more of a nitpick, and the other one was kind of an issue that kind of got better with more listens. I also listened to this album 5 times. It's the first time I ever gave a shit about lyrics. So, props to me.
Props to you, really?
You cared about lyrics before. I will come to your defense. You cared about lyrics before.
So, at first I thought some of these lyrics were a little cringy, like middle school prose cringy, especially in
Dude, it is. It is kind of cringe at first. Like you kind of have to get over that.
Yeah, I fucking love Stormy the Rabbit, but that first verse, I cringe.
Oh, dude, is that the one with that part sucks.
No.
I hate
it's
that shit.
it's the foresting forests where he has F at the beginning, the alliteration. I cringe.
Oh, that part's awesome. I love that part.
I cringe every time, but I love that song. That's probably my favorite song on the album. Like looking at the track listing, we have Rejoice, Brave as Announced, Survival Song, Bells and Whistles, Randy's House, Stormy the Rabbit, People 2.
People 2, The Reckoning. That's my favorite.
Yeah,
especially when he
lyrically,
does the thing with... Yeah, lyrically, it's one of my favorites. I think musically, it's one of the best written songs. It's the longest song here. And I love the little thing, the breakdown of taking Mrs. Robinson by Simon and Garfunkel.
Flipping it, yeah.
And then just flipping it where Mrs. Robinson, the original is a very hopeful song, but this one is completely the opposite.
I like that it's the second one. It's supposed to proceed, but it in fact precedes People.
Yeah.
It kind of, to me, illustrates. He ends the album on a hopeful note, but the way the tracks are ordered, it's actually No Hope is the end, is the sequel. So
yeah.
I think that's kind of a funny little...
So another issue that I had,
cool.
You guys might disagree. I don't know how you'll feel about this. I feel like drums should have been used more on these. I feel like some of these songs would have hit just a little harder if drums were added, because drums are used once or twice, and I get it that you have that like... what am I trying to say? Like empty sound with all the instruments. Yeah, but I feel like when the drums come in, they add so much punch to the vocals. So I feel like, especially on I think Bad Things, some drums would have really helped that song.
That's honestly one of my issues with the album as well, and it keeps some of these songs, like there isn't a song here that I don't like.
Same,
and there actually isn't a song here that I don't think is really solid. But what makes the tracks that I love stand out are when they just have a little more of that punch to them, and I do think that more drums would have just filled it out, even if there was just like a kick drum in a snare and that was it. Just doing something simple to keep everything a little more full. But I do also like the fact that they eschew percussion most of the time. I think that it works in some cases, but in some cases it leaves me wanting a little.
Absolutely.
I think my point would be to that. I don't disagree with that point, but I think the fact that some of these songs have more lavish instrumentation totally helps them stand out. Like I can't remember which track has the Big Ball of Meat at the end. I think it's Stormy the Rabbit.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it's Stormy the Rabbit.
Yeah.
The way that song totally opens up in the first few seconds is completely unique to that song. I think the chord, they're playing simple chord progressions. I think the way they play them helps the song stand out too. Like you would never mistake Bad Things for Rejoice. You would never mistake Brave as a Noun for Survival Song.
Well, they flow into each other.
They do, but they are distinct. Like you can tell them apart.
That transition between Brave as a Noun and Survival Song is masterful.
So awesome.
I just cheer every time it happens.
I don't know. I don't have basically any complaints about this record. I think it's like
I just have a few nitpicks. Everything I could want. It really grew on me. I like the lyrics.
That's funny because like I remember when I first heard Rejoice, I was like, it's super. Now that I hear it's like it's so familiar to me. But I remember when I first heard it, I was like, this is really strange. I don't know if I'm into this. Like I don't mind the vocal performance. I love the vocal performance immediately, but just listening to it more and more. Damn, it just grows on you so quickly. And then and it's 25 minutes too, so it's just over and over again.
I know, what a breeze. It works to the album's advantage so well, how it flows beautifully, like a fucking stream. It's seamless.
And just, topically, it's great. I think the sense of humor deserves more praise than that. You kind of have to have a darker, like depraved side to your humor to laugh at some of these tracks.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know though. I never really found myself laughing. Like, I don't know. I feel like it hits too hard sometimes. The only time I don't know. There's not really a lot of funny moments on it for me personally. I feel like it just hits you over the head the whole time. That's when the closer comes. That's the one moment of brevity.
I guess it depends how serious you take it, because sometimes I
took it pretty seriously. I guess I shouldn't have, but
no, you can take it as serious as you want. I guess what I'm saying is because you're on the receiving end of his expression, so it's totally up to you how you perceive it. His intention is null and void, if the way it is received, which is going to be different for everyone, is different. So, you know, for me, like when I think he's totally going over the top with like the pregnant woman line, the big ball of meat line. Like I think those are very in a lot of the moments on Bad Things too, where he's just, you know, playing up this like terrible character who hurts people, have a sense of humor to them. You know, like I think the part where he's like, you know, I'm hurting this person's family. The mother begged me not to kill them, and I continued without mercy. It's just, you know, it sounds really depraved, but the way he's playing, it's like super upbeat. You know, it's meant to be very much like, I think there's a level of humor there, a level of dark humor there that's, you know, doesn't need to go underappreciated or underrepresented. You know,
Right.
I think he's very conscious of the fact that, you know, you can feel strongly about these things and present them in that way, I think. I mean, that's a quality I find in myself where it's like you just go completely over, like you're frustrated with something. Okay, just take it to 11. You know, like, why not? You know, then you go from moaning. If you can, you know, at that point, you can turn it into something that people can kind of at least look at, you know, and not just you know, you can turn the ends of their lips and not their stomachs, I guess.
I wish his writing, I mean, as much as I praise it, I wish his writing was just a little bit more mature on this album. And I know it's like, I don't know if it's the debut, but obviously it's the first of...
It's like second record.
I think it's the second record.
It's pretty much considered to be their first
big
album,
record,
as far as I can see. I
so
see
obviously,
like no discussion about.
Obviously, you're going to have some like immaturity there, but I don't know. I feel like a few rewrites would have helped the writing just a bit, because I don't want to cringe when I listen to some of these lyrics, because I really do enjoy them, but just sometimes it's a little middle school prosy, dude. It's just a little bit.
I think that's fair, because I felt that way once or twice, but I think it's mature. I think there's a level of maturity there underneath, maybe.
Right.
You know,
it's hard
like
it's hard to talk about stuff like this and be taken seriously. You know what I mean? Like to the level he's taking.
I think that's why he takes it. Well, I think that's why he takes it to that level, so you don't have to take it so seriously. You can still, you know, just because something's funny doesn't mean it's a joke. So you can understand where he's coming from and understand that he's playing it up. And, you know, you can even laugh at that. But, you know, it's coming from a very real place.
Oh, yeah,
and
I believe
think that translates on, like, every song here. I guess the only thing I don't like is, like, the big, like, oh, at the beginning of one of the songs. But then the rest of it's amazing. So that's pretty much my only complaint. I think this is an amazing record. And we will absolutely be doing AJJ again, because they just have so much to offer. Like, they're such a great band. Yeah, I'm feeling like a strong 8 or a light 9.
Okay, I'm feeling a decent 8 on AJJ's People. I don't remember the title.
People who can eat people. It's the people record.
People
who can eat people are the luckiest people in the world.
No, it's people that can eat people are the luckiest people in the world.
It's basically
it's people who can. God damn it!
Actually,
it's people who
no,
can. I'm
it's
looking
not.
At the top. I'm looking at the cover right now.
It's people
who can eat people.
June, you're crazy. I'm looking at it myself, and it says that. People that can.
No.
Hold
Wow.
on.
I think we've just experienced the Mandela effect.
I've never been wrong on the show. I'll look it up.
I'm looking at the cover right now. That's what it says.
Well, actually, that record has never been pressed to vinyl, it looks like, so never mind. I was looking on Discogs. I'm not going to Rate Your Music. I don't care enough.
All right.
I'm already on Rate Your Music.
Well,
oh, wait. No. Walk it back. Hold on. Walk it back. I bet you I can find it. Boom, because they're Andrew Jackson Jihad, and they changed their name to AJJ, and that's separated on Discogs for some reason. It's the same band. I don't know if anyone at Discogs knows that. If you're listening and you're from Discogs, they're the same band. I know it's kind of confusing, but...
Look, I just linked it, Chaz. I just linked it. You can
look at it. It's People Who. I see it's People Who, yeah.
It's People Who.
Okay, give me a second.
There is a $300 copy of this record because it's like the first one. Jesus.
Fair enough. Now I'm about to blow all your guys' minds. You ready for this?
No.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
What are you linking it? What source are you looking at?
Just an image I found.
Hold on.
See, we've experienced the Mandela effect in real time.
I think it's there's too many universes right now. But hold on.
Oh, when they reissued it, the digital file had that.
I was gonna say, look at that one, Chaz. Look at.
Digital file has that, and the
original title was That Can Eat People.
CD had Who.
Yeah, the original title was that.
No, it's still Who. because the CD, like, it came out at the same time they released it on CD and digitally. And then there's a record, but it has a different cover, and it's still Who on the record.
Interesting.
Anyway.
What do you give it, Jude?
I'm going to go with a light 8 on this. I do think this is a great album.
Ooh.
The album that I chose is by, oh, Jesus Christ. It's by a band called the Gerogerigegege, I think.
Let's just call it the Gero. Let's call them the Gero.
The Gerogerigegege.
Something like that. I know.
They are a bit of a cult classic noise and noisecore band from Japan that people who are into just like musical terrorism are a big fan of. The album I chose for us to listen to is perhaps their most famous or infamous, Tokyo Anal Dynamite, which is a live record recorded in 1987, but not released until 1990 on CD. It is a 34-minute, 75-track oral assault on your ears with lots of yelling, lots of guitar feedback, lots of chaotic drumming, and just it's noisecore. You have to kind of give it a quick listen to kind of understand what you're getting into, because describing it's potentially the most chaotic thing that they could do at that point in time. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Most of the songs are about 20 seconds or I don't think there's a single song here that goes beyond like 40 seconds. It's truly an experience. It's definitely not for everybody. It's more of a mood and atmosphere listen than a listen that you can pick out certain aspects of the instrumentation. You're not going to be listening for guitar riffs. You're not going to be listening for choruses. It's just to put it on, and for 35 minutes, chaos consumes your ear bowls. So, I'll let you all take it away.
Stand with me, Brian.
I didn't know what you were going to think about this. I decided to choose it. It was as a joke initially.
Is this not... I think I listened to the wrong one. I think I listened to an ambient album.
No, I heard you listening to it.
That joke didn't land. Let's just move on.
So I didn't know what you were going to think about this. I chose it as a joke at first because it was like, we're going to get back to recording. And I was like, I got something I can throw at you. But then, I genuinely enjoy it. And I
the discussion will be interesting.
So different that it would be worth talking about just how different this is from most other music that exists. And just to see if something this out there can resonate with you all. So it sort of became less of a joke the more I thought about it. And by the time it came to actually cement our choices, I was like, yeah, you know what? Yes, let's do this album. So
Brian,
I'm gonna hand it off to you all now.
Brian, you're getting in the ring first, and then when you're done, tag me in, because I've got more to say than probably all three of us.
I don't know. I have complicated feelings about it, I guess, because it's pretty badass. At times, it's like super blood pumping, super visceral, super awesome. Funny, but in a good way sometimes too. I do love. There are a few of the moments that are the whole point of this thing is not to write good songs, not to et cetera, so on. It's not a very traditional record, obviously, being
it's
a
dogma
record. It's literally just a visceral 38-minute experience. It's not about picking out individual tracks or even, there's some individual moments that I like more than others, but there's no point in finding a timestamp for these things because that's not really what it's about. So I guess in one sense, I like how intense it is in general. I like the performance in general, the entire piece, because it is basically one piece of music divided up into sections, probably just because it's hilarious. And I, in general, like how destructive it is, but at the same time, in another breath, it's like I will almost never come back to this. I don't hate it. I don't hate it while it's on. It's cool. That's honestly how I feel. I'm at a point of where I admire this album more than I like it, and that leads me to those kind of two viewpoints on it. Just lead me to a point of indifference almost, because there are things I can appreciate about this record, but the elements I appreciate about this record are just elements of it. Holistically, it's I don't know. I guess, like I said, it's complicated because there are points where it's worth sitting through I don't think it's that hard to sit through, but there are points where it's like, it feels like it's worth it, like, for lack of a better way to put it. Because there's a couple of times where, like, you know, it's like a song slips through the cracks almost. And like you get like 10 seconds of like this super driving like drum beat over all this noise. And it kind of works out to this like beautiful, like it's basically like the most intense noise rock song for like 20 seconds at a time, twice on this album. You know, that's kind of what I get out of it, that I really enjoy, where I'm really involved. Other than that, I mean, it's intense. It's a pretty cool listening experience. But for me, I get attached to vocal performers. I get attached to songwriting more than anything else. So as I can appreciate how intense it is, I can appreciate what it's doing, and I kind of like what it's doing at times. But at the end of the day, you know, it doesn't mean I'm attached to it. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't recommend it either. Like, I feel like you should give it a listen if you're into wilder sectors of music, or you're looking for something extremely off the wall. But it is a brand of extreme music, and it doesn't really have anything that's structural about it. It really is just a long noise piece. It's almost like an abstract piece of art as far as music goes. Which isn't to say it doesn't have value, but it doesn't really interest me as a listening experience. You know, it's not invalid. It's totally valid music. It's pretty badass sometimes, but overall, you know, I just sort of feel indifferent at the end of the day. I admire it. I think it's kind of badass, but won't come back to it a whole lot. There are a couple things I get out of it while I'm listening to it, but for the most part, it's just sort of on a lot of the time. I can appreciate the intensity, but I don't identify with it or feel it sometimes. Sometimes it just feels like, you know, I would rather be listening to a harsh noise record or something that's, you know, going to fry my brain, but in a way that's more akin to, like, you know, some psychedelic kind of songs or production, as opposed to this, which is an onslaught of intensity to the point where it becomes not intense at some point. You know, it really only gets me in a few moments after the first, like, 10 minutes.
Okay, so I'm going to say what I like first. I have a couple things that I like about it. For one, the energy is at an 11 the entire time, which is impressive. This guy's vocal ability, this angry Japanese man, is something to be inspired by. I think the drumming is decent. It's probably the one thing that keeps me grounded through this onslaught of putrid feedback and angry yelling. I like the production. Definitely has that live album feel, like most live albums do.
It is live. I mean, yeah, it's
right.
It's a live record.
And I can appreciate what this album is doing because it was being done in '87. That's pretty impressive. But I mean, when it comes to most media, Japan is usually ahead of the curve all the time. Just if you look at history, Japan is always ahead of the curve. So I'm not surprised that they were doing stuff like this in '87. However, this is everything that Brian hated about Metal Machine music, for me, amplified. Just non-stop. It's just not a good time. I'm not having a good time when this is on. It's absolutely...
It's not a good time. I love that. You know what I think about this album? It's not a good time.
Look, I can respect it. I can understand it. But I don't think it's good. And I'm really glad that you said that this is a mood album, June, because if you had told me that, if you said to me right now that you're like, yeah, you know, I put this on every now and then to listen to, you know, I put it on the car, I was going to come to the fucking webcam and strangle you, because there's no goddamn way that you just put this on like, you know, I think I want to put on some Tokyo Anal Dynamite. What did they fuck? Like, I don't believe that. So I'm glad you didn't say that, because I was going to lose it. I think the biggest issue I have with this here is that we have a John Zorn issue where it's so fucking one note. It's just a one-trick pony for 30 minutes, which I guess you could say is the point, but I don't think it helps the experience. I feel like, because this is troll music. This is so obviously trolling. It's meant to be funny. I don't think it's funny though. I'm the one person here not laughing, because there's no way you're...
I don't think it's troll music. It's not troll music.
It clearly is.
It's not just a joke.
I think it is.
No way. No way.
You cannot convince me otherwise. We're going to have to agree to disagree on this one because there's no way that there's some integrity here. It's clearly meant to.
Yeah, absolutely there is.
And you know why I don't think that? Because I've looked into this group and they have an album.
They're ridiculous.
They have other albums that are similar to this. They have an album that has, do not quote me on this, like a Japanese prime minister or some political figure. And it's just sex noises the whole time. Like it's obviously meant to be jokes, which is what this album is.
Well, they have a lot of different records.
I mean, they have
stuff that's like that, but they also have stuff that is just straight up harsh noise. He has a vein of Metal Machine music that doesn't have that level of. I mean, if you look at the album cover for the album we're talking about. But if you look at like Instruments Disorder, which is 38 minutes long, the album cover is not crazy. It's just a 38-minute long piece. And that is a valid artistic statement. I think that just because it's ridiculous.
It's not because it's ridiculous.
And I think that part of it is, if something like this came out nowadays, people would maybe roll their eyes. But especially in the 80s, this was so boundary pushing in terms of just the level of violence.
I don't know.
It purported in music. I mean, it was so out there that it pushed the boundaries for a lot of stuff in the underground. Yeah, and I think it is a genuinely enthralling experience.
But that
despite being hilarious to me that they made this. It's funny that they made it. It doesn't mean that the band is just a joke.
I don't know. Just from looking at what they're known for, what projects they put out, and this one especially, I just get trolled. I feel like I'm being trolled, and I'm the one that's not laughing because it's not even good. I feel like would have made this so much better, because I mentioned like it's one note. It really is. Obviously, they're not doing the same thing over and over again. Brian, you put it beautifully with like, there are seemingly moments of an actual song slipping through the cracks every now and then. I totally get what you're talking about. However, when you're not paying attention, it just sounds like it's the same thing over and over and over again. And it essentially is. It's a formula. You have putrid fucking feedback that is just so overblown. And then you have like this angry Japanese guy yell 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just pure chaos. But it's that.
That sounds great to me.
I know, but it's that over and over and over again for 30 minutes. That's not good. It's just not a good fucking time. It's by the 20-minute mark, I'm numb. I'm numb to the pain. I'm numb to the fucking pain. Obviously, this is music. I was debating if I should be like, is this really music? It clearly is. It is music. There's been so much that's come out after this that is like, or do we consider this music or not? Like there's a recording out there. I think it was Yoko Ono that did it, or someone did it where they're just banging on a piano bench. Like it's a piano concert, but they're just banging on a piano bench the whole time. And it's like, well, is that really music? Yes. Yes, it is. Like, short answer. However, here, it's like you can convince me up and down that this is art. There is integrity here. The band, is pushing boundaries. It doesn't fucking matter because it still sucks. It sucks so hard. It's awful. It's putrid. It's so putrid. It's just a rotting corpse, and I don't want to look at it. You cannot convince me otherwise that this isn't a joke. The album is called Tokyo Anal Dynamite. That's like me and a bunch of middle school kids being like, hey, let's make this stupid fucking song and let's call it Tokyo Anal Dynamite. We're so funny. And like, that's just what I get from this. Because you were telling us about, how some of the concerts were for this band and how they were insane.
Yeah, they're...
Which makes me to believe that there is some seriousness to it. But I don't know,
man. They got
banned
from multiple venues in Japan for destroying the venues. He brought a bulldozer into a venue once.
So that doesn't... But that doesn't...
They were classified as danger music because it was genuinely dangerous.
But that doesn't convince me that this is a good band, a good artist. That just makes me convince me that they're insane and need to be reprimanded and put away, never to be seen again.
That's possibly also true.
I'd rather listen to a second grader play Mary Had a Little Lamb piss poorly for the same amount of time than whatever the hell this is. You You really crushed me, June. You know, you crushed me. You actually hurt me.
I am so glad. You're a goddamn plebeian. Y'all are both plebeians. What do you think, Brian?
I feel like I spoke my piece. I feel like I summarized.
Oh, you already said stuff. I forgot. I was too busy.
Well, June, I will give you a chance. I'll give you a chance to defend it because I'm sure you have things to say about it. I don't get it.
Is fun as shit. It's so goddamn fun. It's just energy. It's a mood. It is a texture. It reminds me of like the closest thing that we've heard, and it's not nearly as harsh as this, and it's different stylistically.
Macintosh.
But obviously, no. The closest thing that we've heard to this is Metal Machine music,
right,
for the show, obviously. So if you remember what we were talking about Metal Machine music, in that it is an interesting sound and good in bits and pieces, it's just that it was so long, and that was what really took it back for me, especially. And I think everybody could agree, like it just needed some more variation to become more interesting. This, to me, has that variation. It's so all over the place and unexpected. I never know what is about to happen. And I'm not going to sit here and listen to it. I'm not going to take notes on every track because there's 75 of them. I'm not going to be here and say, oh, I love that moment in track number 64 where he shouts 1, 2, 3, 4, and then
what the
happens,
fuck do you?
right? But I love
what?
that feel, and I love the feedback. You hate the guitar feedback. I adore how noisy this thing is because it's like I can just imagine being there in the mid 80s. And obviously there have been some stuff for at least a decade or two before this that is crazy. I mean, we've talked about Throbbing Gristle on the show before, even though we haven't talked about any of their albums. But this, like, I can just imagine if you were there, just how terrifying, because there was nothing like this at the time. I mean, it's like taking punk, which is that's what it would be at its very, very, very core roots, would be like hardcore punk. But it just mutilates it to the point that it's unrecognizable, as barely even recognizable as music. You might think, what the fuck is happening? Are someone over there is trying to murder some instruments. It has even less structure than John Zorn did. And John Zorn had a lot of noisecore influence and grindcore influence, but it wasn't, a lot of it was structured and written as a jazz record. This has absolutely no structure. This is completely chaotic. And I don't think I've ever heard anything as chaotic as this. And because of that, it hits a certain niche that I think is super, super entertaining. I've listened to this album probably 6 or 7 times total. I've just thrown it on while playing Minecraft before. I have. I've just done it. I've been like, okay, I want to hear some smashing. I want to hear some craziness. And I just throw it on, and like, it's super easy for me to listen to it at this point.
That reminds me of Tanner Boyd talking about my album. Because you were saying, like, I played TF2 while listening to Aphex Twin. He's like, how do you murder to this? Well, how the fuck do you build a house to Tokyo Anal Dynamite?
It's calming after a while because it's just so intense that, I don't know, it reminds me, it's just like, it's just easy to put on. Like,
look,
I can
you're
just throw it on.
You're a fucking liar,
I don't
though.
think it nullifies your mind. You don't have to think anymore.
You are a liar when you say that there's variation to this. That is fucking false. That is not facts, my friend. There's no variation. There is no variation in this record. I don't care what you say to convince me otherwise.
Goddamn normie. You're a goddamn normie, Chaz Jenkins. You're a normie.
Look,
fucking
again,
normie plebeian.
I get it. I respect it. Dude,
I wasn't expecting you all to like this. I just wanted you.
Dude, this is a strong 0. This is a strong 0. I'm giving you a 0 out of 10, June. You hurt my soul.
It's like a decent 8.
What?
It's like a decent 8.
Stand with me, Brian.
It's like a light, decent 5.
All right, that's fine.
I don't really feel strongly one way or the other. I wasn't really all that intrigued.
Man, I'm pissed. I really thought Brian was like gonna hate this because he didn't like mine. So I was like, well, there's no way he's going to like June's pick then. No, I was wrong. I'm always wrong.
I mean, this is like more like palatable to me than the Chipmunks record, just because it's not annoying, but it doesn't really make me feel strongly one way or the other.
Well, it just makes me mad because I feel like it fails on everything it's trying to accomplish. Like, except the energy, like, except pushing the boundaries, it obviously succeeds.
I think that's the only thing it's trying to accomplish.
I don't know. I truly believe it's trolling. I feel like it's not. They're like, hey, we're going to go to this concert venue and then we're just going to play this crazy shit and we'll see the audience reaction. That's just the feeling I get.
To some degree, it's, they're in on the joke, right? But I think another side of it is it's this, once you become involved and eventually, the joke stops and you're just doing it, right? It's like if you like something ironically, you're like, oh, I like this ironically, but you do it all the time, you like it. So, I think it's, they're doing it, maybe they're doing it ironically at first, but eventually becomes a very primal, like primordial kind of, just from a place of pure energy, just negative, however you want to flip it, like negative or,
June, I'll be honest with you. First listen or two was like a strong 4, light 3 kind of like territory, but just the more I listened to it, I got angrier because I was like, this guy thinks he's so fucking hilarious just playing the same shit over and over again. I don't know. I feel like if there was like a middle of the album, they actually go into a real song, it would have floored me. I would have been like, this is hilarious. Like, but because there's no variation, there's nothing that mixes up the chaos. It just stays one note the whole time. While impressive, it just hurts me.
And that was this episode of Unwarranted Music Opinions. Next episode is going to just be a free-for-all pick. We can all choose whatever we want to listen to. And I have decided to choose the 1993 post-punk album Hum of Life by Dog-Faced Hermans.
I picked Shoe Shoes, Fabulous Muscles.
I'm going to be completely changing it up with the debut album by famed Hawaiian musician Israel something. Don't even want to try and botch his name. He goes by IZ, so that's what we'll call him. IZ's debut album, Kainoa, in 1990. Kainoa.
I think.
It's Kainoa.
Kainoa? Okay.
The title track, he literally says Kainoa. So.
Kamakawiwo.
Chupakableh.
That was Unwarranted Music Opinions. Hopefully you'll join us again next time as we discuss Hawaiian easy listening, the terror of listening to Shushu, and a wonderful, wonderful Scottish lady.
Kamakawiwo Ole.